I'm Steam Cypher Guffpunk, and this is my Let's Play of Vampire the Masquerade, The Final Nights. Now this is an add-on to Bloodlines 1, which gives us 7 new clans, and some changes to the skills. Some little changes to the skills, some slight extra quests, and some nice little tweaks here and there. Some to difficulty, and some to, again, to the skills and little features, which I will be showing along the way. Now, we had a little section where you can read basically the history and learn more about the clans, which I'm going to pause here because I don't want to read it because I need to save my voice for this. But you can pause and read it. And I will be leaving Wikipedia entries in the description for all the clans as well, so you can have more reading material to learn about them. And the Assamites in V5 have been renamed the Bahaquem, and the followers of Set have been renamed as the Ministry. Again, you'll see the explanations in the Wikipedia, in the White Wolf Wiki entries. But this is a really fun mod. I really enjoyed this mod because it was really enjoyable to play as different clans and experience their different disciplines, but also the changes this mod does actually kind of make to the base game is actually definitely tricky, but definitely fun, and let me actually explore different quest outcomes or solutions that I don't always do, which that's mostly my fault. And also in this mod, they also include 2 bloodlines: the Ishikari, which is the bloodline of the Toreador clan, and the Ozbo, which is a bloodline of the Bruja clan. And they're both available in the Vampire Masquerade, the Ebony Kingdom sourcebook, which you can find out more information. Which details all the clans that are in Africa. And again, this is their interesting blue bloodline. And I will definitely go into more detail about the gameplay aspects of each clan. But the clan I'm going to be playing is the clan I actually first played ever when I first played this mod, and I've been really wanting to, which is the Followers of Set. Now, I really enjoy the Followers of Set. I think they're one of my favorite non-Camarilla clans. I just really love it. I love the Egyptian theme. I love the Temptationers and Corruptor theme. It's super fun. Now, I've beaten this mod about 6 times. The clan that I have, with pretty much almost all the clans, the only clan that I have not beaten the mod with yet is the Sandimi, but I am working on a playthrough of playing one. But I don't want to do it for a first playthrough because I find them quite difficult to play, and I'll explain a little bit more when I look at them. So we have the Assamites here. And the Assamite clan weakness is when you pick, let's say clan the Gifted. So there's Path of the Professional, which is skills. Path of the Blackhead, which is Path of the Scholar. and then Path to Gifted, which is talents. So by default, it's talents that, sorry, just go back in here, is talents. Now, this means that I will, one good thing about this is oh look, and you can see the little thing about the Viziers, because we were playing as a Vizier. I just find that really fun. Oh. So, here's the thing. So, I'm going to, say for example, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be the Path of the Gifted. That means I'm going to pay way less to put points into Intimidation and Subterfuge. However, in my Skills and Knowledges abilities, I am going to pay a little bit more, which can add up, because in the Final Nights, you don't get as much XP, which is frustrating, to say the least in my opinion, but it's really challenging. It really challenges you to make sure you put your skills really much more purposely and actually stick to a build. Anyway, so I'm going to show you the different levels of Quietus. Now, I actually use Quietus, and I think getting Quietus up to level 4 is perfectly fine. Now, level 5 is nice, but I don't find it that useful, because by this point, for me personally, by the time I would get it, I don't have that many issues with getting blood. But it's still a useful ability if you want to have it. Now, if I was going to play as a firearm build rather than a melee build, I definitely would stick to level 3, which is Taste of Death, which is a ranged attack. Because Baal's Caress is really more useful if you're playing a melee weapon character, or at least someone who's actually willing to switch between melee and firearms. So that's something you have to take into account. Do you actually need this? And if you don't need it, then there's no point. However, I guess if you were like in a situation where you need to use a melee weapon, you would probably use it. For example, the example I would give is if you're doing Velvet's quest line where you have to kill Chastity, and in this mod you can't just leap on her and feed on her, you actually have to fight her in melee combat. If you want to succeed in that quest, you do not want to use firearms, because that attracts attention. So you probably would want to go for this, but do you want to spend, in this case, in this mod's case, 18 XP just to be able to do that? That is up to you. So that's something you have to take into account there. I think this mod is this mod does very interesting is it almost is like, you don't have to go up to level 5. It's not crucial to get up to level 5, but it is a fun little bonus to get to level 5. But it's so expensive to get there, so I'm just pointing that out. And also, I really like how this mod redid aspects. It's just really well done, and they give, like, level 3 starts to add points of intelligence, which is super useful, because in this mod, intelligence is what you need for hacking, not wits. Wits is just purely for defense. Very much like the Prelude mod, intelligence is super crucial for hacking as well as knowledge. And of course, manipulation is what you have for barter, and coercion, which is, intimidation, because they've renamed some of the feats, which is burglary is security, for unlocking. Evasion, of course, is for illusion. Illusion is for sneaking. Literacy is basically your research. Coercion is basically your intimidate. So I really appreciate what they did with aspects, and it's really quite useful, because sometimes when you're playing as a character who probably isn't the smartest character, but you still need to be able to read a skill book, you can just use your aspects to help buff you up while you read a skill book. And of course we got Celerity. Celerity is a little bit different in this mod, I feel like, but it's still very effective. You don't need to have high levels to be able to do what you need to do, I feel like. And of course Blood Buff is at level 1, which that means you have to at least start upgrading if you need to. And you got Blood Heal, because now in this mod, when you feed or drink a blood pack, you don't automatically get healed. You have to actually use your blood heal to heal. So that's something you have to take into account. So that makes it a little bit harder in this mod. But I will be showing you how to do that. So that's the Astamite, and I'm going to show you the different character models as well here. And the Bali. Now the Bali, their weakness, now their bonus is, because of their ability to adapt, they get a +1 experience bonus whenever they have, you get experience 3 or more during quests or whatever. Super useful. However, they're so evil, they can never get a humanity up to 5, and they can't gain more humanity by dancing for 5 minutes, which is really annoying. But the Bali have Dementation, which is actually it's a really good discipline path. Conflation is super useful. Conflation is really great against supernatural enemies. I'm not joking. It's amazing. Like, if you play as a Bali, try to get it as soon as possible, because it's super useful, especially when you're facing against supernatural creatures. You will have a much easier time just dealing with those creatures, because it makes everything so much easier. And they have a Fusicate, which is pretty neat, and Presence. Now, Presence has been also reworked. So at first everything is normal, but once you get to level 3, this is where you start getting when you're going in dialogue, start getting bonuses to your corrosion and seduction. And then when in level 4, you also get persuasion in the dialogue. So this is super useful. So that's something else you have to take into account when you're playing as a clan that has presence. Do you want to buff up your presence to the point that not only you are debuffing enemies, but also being able to have better, conversational values, in conversation, like having more seduction, coercion, and even possibly when you have level 4 or 5, better persuasion. So that's another thing you have to take into account. And it's presence gets really good in the higher levels. I feel like it really screws up enemies. It was already a pretty damn good debuffer in the original Bloodlines, but I feel like they did a better job of that. And also, be sure to read some of these backgrounds, because some of these backgrounds are really tailored to some of these clans. And then we got the Followers of Set, and they have Serpentines, which is really, really fun. Did I actually show you the Bali one? Okay, so Dementation, like I said, Conflation is really great. Infernal Servitor is really neat. I really enjoy it. Now, you don't really need Concordance, because you don't need it. If you're not playing as an unarmed build, you really don't need it. But it is fun to do. It is fun. But if you're playing as an unarmed build, this is definitely something you probably want to work towards. But you don't have to get up to level 5. This is the important thing you need to know when you're playing this mod. It's like, you don't always need to go up to level 5, especially when you have the unique disciplines. Like, level 3 or 4 is enough for some of these disciplines. And I felt like with the Follower Set this one has a really fun discipline path. Like, you can turn into this snake-human hybrid, which is really fun in level 3, and you can do aggravated damage. It's an unarmed thing, and that's going to be fun to play around with. But Hard Darkness. Now, Hard Darkness is interesting. Now, what the Setites are most famous for is being able to remove their hearts and place them in a little jar. Because that's what the ancient Egyptians did when they were mummifying, doing mummification, is that they would remove the heart and put in, place it in a jar, and they would also remove the other important organs and place them in jars. But when a Setite does that, they cannot be staked. Now, in this mod, they're practically indestructible. It's like practically God mode. When the heart is removed, all but one blood point will remain, making other disciplines' use impossible. Upon removal, the heart will remain in the character's inventory for safekeeping, but ending the discipline will put the heart back in. Blood loss will cease when the heart is missing. So that's something very important. So, that's something you have to take into account. Do you want to be practically immortal, or do you want to be able to use your other disciplines for fun? That's something to take into account. And we have POTUS because we're playing the warrior cast of the Setites. Now, normally Setites have a Fusicate, but we're playing as the warrior version. I do believe in older versions of the Final Knights, you did have a Fusicate, but we don't here. I didn't show off the male model of the Setite. So, and then we got the Ishikari, and they have, and I forgot to mention, the followers of Set have a +1 to persuade, and unfortunately, because of their weakness to bright light, because they are truly creatures of darkness, they get a minus penalty to all soak feats when they're in the dark. So normally we would have 1 bashing, but we kind of lost it because we're in such bright light at the moment, so that's annoying. I don't know how well that actually completely works mechanically. We'll see when we actually play as a Setite. Now, the Ishikari, they need to keep their blood at a certain level, otherwise their humanity starts to dip at a rapid rate. So you have to keep it above a certain level, which is kind of annoying to deal with, but it's not too impossible to deal with, especially since they have +1 to appearance, which makes them pretty easy seducers, really. So that's nice. And they have Fortitude, which works pretty much how it does in the normal game, although the values are bigger than they were in the original Bloodlines 1. They were often too short. And again, Celerity and Presence, which, again, very nice conversations. The Ozbo are, again, the Bruja clan. Now, they gave it +1 to strength. However, they have a -2 penalty of all frenzy checks. So, and killing or witnessing the murder of an innocent often leads to more frenzying, which is something you have to take into account. So, I guess if you're going to play as an Ozbo, you really want to make sure your humanity's in good check. And this really leans towards them being the melee fighters of the clan, which makes sense. But they also have aspects which could lead you to going towards firearms, or basically using your wits to help you, with your defense. Which defense in this mod is super useful. I really do find it really quite useful in this mod. So that's something you want to take into account. And I've actually used an Ozbo to hack a lot of computers as well. So they could be hackers too. Something to think on. And considering some of their backgrounds are actually to do with them being quite intelligent, that's something neat, as well as, warriors. And then we have the Salubri, one of my favorite clans of the World of Darkness. I really like them. I like the fact there's a healer clan there, and basically the cinnamon rolls of the World of Darkness. So, like Salubri are always searching for gold condom. That means they master the Beast Within. Because of this, they receive a +2 bonus against versus frenzy, so they're less likely to frenzy. And they also have healing regeneration. However, unfortunately, they don't get as much blood from when they're feeding on humans. So, and also, appearance will also cost more to rate, so that's something you have to consider. I don't find those 2 weaknesses that difficult for me personally when I'm playing the Final Knights. I don't always play as a seductress in the Final Knights, but I will be in this game. I don't have a problem feeding on blood, and I'll probably talk about it as I go on, but it might affect it if you were trying to play a certain way. But there are backgrounds to help you with seduction and things, so that's something to take into account. The Sandemi. Now, the Sandemi are basically our Nosferatu option. Now, they have a really great bonus, which is +1 to Fusicate. Super useful. So you get level 3 straight away. However, they can never be seductive, of course. And as seen by mortals, this will practically summon law enforcement or lead to a masquerade violation. Like, honestly, if you are too close to mortals, you will get a criminal violation. It's quite annoying. It's quite annoying. It's really frustrating. You have to be basically a fusicant or in the sewers all the time, and that's one of my frustrations with playing as a Sandemi. However, it does make them challenging for sure, and you can only play as a male, which I find annoying. But their back rows are kind of cool, and man, you really get, when you're doing lockpicking, you really get a close-up on these gnarly hands. But yes, it really highlights how interested in death they are. So, but yeah, they're quite an interesting clan, I think. This is really quite nice. Now, I haven't had a chance to try all of this disciplines out, but I will. I didn't really show you this early when I didn't really show up Bea, like an idiot. Now, like I said, I've played as a Salubri. My goodness, Salubris can be the most tankiest Kindred ever in this game. Like, once you get Fortune to at least 3, get a Bea up to level 4, which gives you a +3 bonus and also feats, and getting your aspects up and, you know, basically your defense up, they will tank almost anything. Like, I will record it at some point, but my goodness, I was just tanking stuff that normally gave me so much trouble towards the end of the game. It was like, normally when I played the mod, it's crazy. So they might have a lot against them, but my goodness, at least the build I was playing, they're freaking survivors. Like, towards the end, there was very few enemies that actually could damage me so badly. The only enemy I would say that could actually hurt me properly was the werewolf in the Griffin Park Observatory, and that was hilarious. But yes, I have a lot of fun. Now, I'm going to play as a follower set, and the build I'm going to play is going to be not 100% in all the different paths, but basically enough to get what I need, like, you know, enough money or find enough things. So, I'm going to explain better what I'm saying, because I sound very jumbled there. So, in the Final Nights, specializing in a particular way is the better way to go about it. So if you want to specialize in a particular combat thing, let's say, for example, firearms, it's a good idea to do so. Or melee weapons. Like, it's better to do that specialization instead of just being complete jack of trades. However, you can have a little bit of a level of a jack of all trades. It's always good, in my opinion, to get into unarmed. It just helps out a lot for, you know, like, to deal with in combat, or at least to be able to feed on enemies. However, you can supplement it with Serpentinus with the Eyes of the Serpent. So that's something to point out. And also, I have a +1 persuasion. So, but the skills I'm kind of mostly talking about is not just the combat skills, but the Final Nights has added some computers or options to existing computers which allow you to hack bank accounts. So and also they've changed some of the passwords, at least parts of the early game, to really encourage you to hack instead of just read up of what the passcodes or logins are in the vanilla game. But too bad, I basically play as a hacking character and just hack them anyway. But but this is something you now. When I play this mod, I already have all the logins to all these online banking passwords, so I'm going to be able to do that anyway. Now you can decide for yourself if you want to either just save up and get the right hacking level, but some of these hacking levels are so high. So I will say that. But it is worth it in a lot of ways because you do get a little bit of money, but you get XP, and that's the biggest thing. But when you're hacking, if you're hacking a computer of someone who's innocent, you lose humanity for it. However, if you're hacking from someone who's not innocent or is a vampire, you don't lose any humanity and you get the XP. But there are going to be times you're going to need to have a high hacking level. And there are some cases you can't now, because you can play as a clan that has aspects, and if you get high enough aspects, you could supplement that. Like, for example, if I had a computer that needed 8 hacking to unlock it, and I only had 7, and I had level 3 aspects, I could just simply use aspects to supplement, and I would be able to hack my way into the computer. However, if I was in a zone that wasn't an Elysium zone, if I was in an Elysium zone, I'm a bit out of luck, and I'll have to wait until I have a higher level of hacking. So, but because I already have those passcodes kind of written down, I can just type it in. Now you can ignore the passcode if you see me type it in if you want to play fair at home, or you could just cheat like me. I'm not going to pause it, but you could pause it during when I type it in. I'm a slow typer, so you'll have time. So that's one particular path which is useful, and I guess if you were going to spend it in skills, it is probably a pretty neat path anyway, especially if you were trying to roleplay as fairly as possible. Now, finance. I haven't done a full finance playthrough, but finance is quite important in the final nights because things are more costly, and there are some options that you would normally supplement with persuasion is instead dealt with the barter skill. So that's something that's important to note. And like I said, things are more expensive in this mod, but you can make a nice lot of money. So normally when I play Bloodlines 1, I usually have my finance at level 5. That's usually enough for me. And I don't even have to pay for it, any of the skill boosts. Like when I'm playing Bloodlines 1, the unofficial patch version, I get a free finance point from Trip. I get a free finance point from Fat Larry, and then I get the finance book and just sell it, buy it, read and read it twice, and I've got it, boom, I've got haggling at level 5 for free. Now in the final nights, unfortunately Trip doesn't give you that quest, which he gives you the haggle point for free. And while Fat Larry can give you that haggle point for free, it's usually better because things of how costly the financial book is. Because the financial book, another thing about the Final Nights, you don't just find the skill books. They're not in the game. Like, you have to go and buy them, and it can be quite expensive. So having an extra free point of finance from Fat Larry is useful because I don't have to buy another book. So that's but, still get the same effect. So now, in my opinion, in the Final Nights, having haggling barter skill 7 is enough to sell things enough as that's worth it. I'm going to be able to buy things a lot easier. You still want to be able to, sorry, to, watch your money, but it does help a lot more. And of course, obviously, if you get your barter to 10, it probably helps even more so. But like I said, money is so important. Haggling really helps you when you're negotiating with with an NPC about your payment. Super important. And also when you, for example, are hiring a sex worker so you can feed on her, you only pay about like $5. So that's super cheap, and it's pretty safe too. So that's an option. I'll probably show that off when I play, get to that point. But I always, when I play the Final Nights, I always make sure I have haggling, barter 7. And I'll be showing that off when I beam. Now investigation, the inspection skill actually has even more of a use. Unlike being able to find items wherever they are, wherever you can, see the glow, the little sparkly glow, as you would in all the normal Vampire Masquerade Buildings 1, you can't, there are hidden items. Some of these items that you would normally be able to pick up in Bloodlights 1 is actually hidden, and you need the right inspection skill to be able to see them. For example, when you're picking up the morphine from the clinic, normally you would be able to see them in Bloodlights 1. However, in the Final Nights, you need inspection level 4 to be able to see it, and that's really important to pay attention. So you are going to, so you're going to see me pay attention to the investigation skill. And like I said, there are hidden items throughout the maps. There's some pretty neat, very useful hidden supplies. Super handy. And I would recommend, if you're just going to do it casually, I would do it at least inspection 7, because that way you'll be able to interact. And there's certain quests you cannot really do properly unless you have a high enough inspection. So I recommend at least 7. Super useful. That's just a flat natural 7. Because again, there's some places that you can't use your aspects to supplement it. But I will say any higher than inspection 7, you guys, like I said, you guys are really good goodies. But this is something you have to take into account. I find that you really want to plan ahead if you're going to have anything more than inspection 8. So let's say because when you get to inspection 9, that's where you can get all the free body armors hidden throughout the map for free. So you might want to plan that ahead before you actually go to buy any of the body armors, because you might feel a bit like, darn, I spent all that money for nothing. So that's something I would plan for. And when you get inspection level 10, you get artifacts which can help boost your disciplines, duration rate, or at least something you could sell for quite a lot of money. Really useful. And the security skill, is really useful. Like, investigation, again, has supplies that you can find, like more blood packs, some weapons, or even little money clips, which can give you a nice little bit of money. Even at inspection 7. Now, security, on the other hand, is really useful. Burglary, it's really useful to have at higher than 8 or 10. It's just, there are so many little chests placed in different parts of the map, like in, buildings or whatever, that have so much, have some nice amount of money, like really good amounts of money. Or there is also locked fridges, which has really higher level blood packs. So it's super useful. Like, if you want to be a big money maker, having a good burglary skill is really useful. You don't even need to have it that high. I think having at least 8 and having blood buff, level 2, and be able to use it in certain places is just enough to get a lot of nice things. Although you won't be able to get it in some places that are in the Elysiums, but so you would need at least level 9. So that's something you have to take into account. But security makes so much money. I'm not joking. And we're going to be making a lot of money anyway. Even not having a high level, having an extremely high level security. But this is something you have to take into account. But it's expensive, but it is super useful. So that's something you want to specialize in. Now, I'm going to show you my build. I'm going to play as a loan officer with my set type, Eliana. You have crunched the numbers, calculated the risks, and set up the meetings. Depths, various depths versus assets and percentages were all you knew, and you played a financial god with the lives of others. Perhaps your loyalties were up for sale too, which is what got you into trouble in the first place. At first, you didn't realize that your partners were into some shady back alley deals, until one night your curiosity got the better of you. You always had a knack for noticing the finer details that others missed, but this time your gifts got you into trouble, and one of those midnight deals led you into a dingy motel room in Santa Monica. And this is where your story begins. Your awareness and calculation must be determined if you wish to last in these final nights. And this gives me the advantage of +1 inspection and +1 barter, which is super useful. And I like to put my barter up to at least 3 because when you go to your into your haven in Santa Monica for the first time, and in the drawer there's $100 that has been left to you. If you don't have a high enough barter skill, if you have a barter skill that's under 3, you only have probably like either $25 or $50. So you want to have barter free for at least the $100. However, when you go up the higher barter, you get more money, and the highest you can actually get is, of course, 6, which I can't at this point because, but I'll show you. So if you're playing, for example, if you're playing as a male Setai or a male Bali, you can get the Magnificent Magnate. So, which gives you +2 in barter. And you can get your barter up to level 6. Very useful. You're practically already set. You don't need to do anything else. You just probably need to, of course, read the financial skill. You might as well get yourself up to 10. So that's something to do. But I'm going to have mine at 5, which is going to be super useful for me. And I'll explain why. And I'm going to have my perception up to 2, which will give me inspection free. And I just need to buy a point in investigation, and I will be able to, for example, get the free morphine thing quickly. And there's some other useful things when you have an inspection, because they've added, like I said, they've added some little tiny things here and there which give you extra XP, which is really neat. And I'm going to have my security up to 2. So I have burglary free. And I'm going to have my brawling up because the build so the build I'm doing, I am going to be a persuasive character, but we're not going to be able to do that straight away. But I am going to have a bit of slight jack of all trades kind of thing, but not too much. We're going to have some focus in some things, and I think it's kind of jack of the trades. I am also going to eventually work on my subterfuge, and of course my persuasion. But for now, we're going to make sure we have enough money and inspection. And of course we have our special ability, which is Serpentiness. So we have Eyes of the Serpent, which is basically trance, and Breeze the Sandstorm, and that does some damage to all within the small radius. That's going to be fun to do, and that do some damage. Unfortunately, this does break the Masquerade. This one does not. Some of the later abilities will absolutely destroy the Masquerade, of course, this one. But the build I'm doing is someone who can use my snake-human hybrid form, which will allow me to do aggravated damage in unarmed, which is something I want to work on. And I also want to be able to use firearms because that is super useful, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to now press play and we're going to watch the cutscene. And I will cut it after the cutscene's over.
Good evening. My fellow Kindred, my apologies for disrupting any business or interfering with prior engagements you may have had this evening. It's unfortunate that the affair that gathers us together tonight is a troubling one. We are here because the laws that bind our society, the laws that are the fabric of our existence, have been broken. As Prince, I am within my rights to grant or deny the kindred of this city the privilege of siring. Many of you have come to me seeking permission, and I have endorsed some of these requests. However, the accused that sits before you tonight was not refused permission. Indeed, my permission was never sought at all. They were caught shortly after the embrace of this child. It pains me to announce the sentence, as up to tonight I considered the accused a loyal and upstanding member of our organization. But as some of you may know, the penalty for this transgression is death. Know that I am no more adjudicator than I am a servant to the law that governs us all. Let tonight's proceedings serve as a reminder to our community that we must adhere to the code that binds our society, lest we endanger all of our blood. Forgive me. Let the penalty commence. Which leads to the fate of the ill-begotten progeny. Without a sire, most childer are doomed to walk the earth never knowing their place, their responsibility, and most importantly, the laws they must obey. Therefore, I have decided that...
This is bullshit!
If Mr. Rodriguez would let me finish. I have decided to let this kindred live. They shall be instructed in the ways of our kind and be granted the same rights. Let no one say I am unsympathetic to the plights and causes of this community. I thank you all for attending these proceedings, and I hope their significance is not lost. Good evening. Your sire. Tragic. My apologies. But you see, there is a strict code of conduct that all of us must adhere to if we wish to survive. When anyone breaks these laws, they undermine the well-worn fabric of our centuries-old society. Understand my predicament. Allowing you to live makes me directly responsible for your subsequent behavior. So, what I'm offering is not generosity, but the opportunity to transcend the fate woven by your sire. This is your trial. You will be brought to Santa Monica. There you will meet an agent by the name of Mercurio. He will provide the details of your labor. I've shown you great clemency. Prove it was more than a wasted gesture, Fledgling. Don't come back until you do. Good evening.
Alright. So, you might notice that cutscene was a little bit different to what we're... Okay. what we normally see. They actually cut out the part where everybody walks out. Mostly because there is a bug where it would just not actually show anyone walking out and just show that area basically being completely empty for about however many seconds it takes for them to walk out, and it's very awkward and weird. I actually thought the game was going to crash originally when I first played, but luckily it was alright. Alright, so I'm going to cut it here and we'll be back shortly.